Hello and welcome to CNN Podcast. I'm Vitali Muvunyi. It's a joy for me to have you again watch this conversation. I believe it's been a blessing to you, and I say that from the very many feedback that I've received from you. So I was saying that it's a joy for me and for every guest that we always have in our studios to have such a conversation that enriches you, that you feel like you're blessed by. Today, as some of you might have already seen on our social media posts, we are doing a part 2 of a very interesting book that we did a review some time back, and we were interviewing the author. This book is called Beyond Walls. It's written by my friend and my brother, ENOCK LUYONZA. Welcome again, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and privileged to be back in the studio again.
Thank you. From our last conversation, I believe we lost the track of time because of how interesting the conversation was, and I promised myself today that I will try, but I know it's not going to be easy. There's a way that...
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's not going to be easy because there's a lot of things that you covered in your book that are so interesting. That if we were to explore each one of them, I don't think that we'd be able to get enough time, but I think it's one of the joy of having a book, like you said last time when you said that everybody should have, everybody should write a book in their lifetime. I think the book kind of gives a lot of information more effectively than speaking. And I'm saying that because if we were to talk about everything that is in this book, I think we would have like 40 hours of TV coverage. Yeah. But we just mention a few things, and whoever is going to buy a book is going to find much more.
Yeah, yeah.
You're going to say something?
Well, just to read on what you are saying, that everyone in their lifetime, they really have to give people they will never meet a chance to interact and engage with their own convictions. And the best way to do that, I find that it is in writing a book or writing anything down. Yeah, so I want to encourage our viewers, write for some people you will never see, live for people you will never see, live beyond your lifetime, and document your convictions, the things that push you, the things that have helped you, even the problems. It is interesting that what is a problem for you right now, what was a problem for humanity probably 100 years ago, still is a problem now. And if you found a solution of how those people 100, 200 years ago dealt with such a problem, for you it would be easier, right?
Yeah, so, you can see how we learn to relate to God through stories that have been around for over 3,000 years. Yeah. I think Moses' story is 1,500 before Christ.
And it's still relevant.
Super relevant.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. I think to our viewers, as we go through the book, we really invite you to buy the book and to read it through. We only give you a glimpse of what's in the book, but the book is very, very rich. So I'll go straight to where we start from, where we ended last time, and I'll go to chapter 4. Last time we only covered 3 chapters. In about 30, this book I think is 13 chapters. Yes, 13 chapters. But last time we only covered 3 chapters. So the way we're going to do this, I've chosen to just pick 1 point from each chapter, 1 point from each chapter. Then we go through so that our viewers can have an idea of what the book covers. I know they won't have such a big idea of what the book covers because we are just taking a tip of an iceberg. But yeah, I'm sure it will give them something. So if we would go to chapter 4 and go straight to page 51, there's something that you said that I think is very, very important about the geniusness. You wrote and said, incredibly smart people aren't always born that way. Rather, they constantly work to improve their understanding of how things work in the world they live in. This is how they keep relevant and engaged. You know, I think the ordinary understanding of who a genius is, when we even talk about the word genius, you just imagine someone who's been born with an IQ of 140 plus. So it's always considered to be something that someone is born with. And yet you're challenging that. You're saying that incredibly smart people, whom I would call genius, aren't always born that way. It made me ask myself, if someone has an over 140 IQ, if they don't improve themselves, if they don't work on it, what happens? Does this IQ somehow does its magic and they still find themselves great? Or maybe what you're saying here is true, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. This is in a book that you call Understanding, and I think you're challenging us to read more. You're challenging us to meet other people. It's even the book that you talk about different dimensions. So tell us about this thing of always working to improve ourselves.
Well, I want to say this, that when I look at myself as lacking in understanding or lacking in genius, I make God a liar, because I am created in the image of a creator.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you see, creation, when you look at a creation like a phone, we say that was genius. Someone who created it was a genius. But anytime I look at myself less, what I'm saying is that it is like an abuson, the one who created me, because he created me in the image of him. So there is an expectation to be like who created you. But it doesn't come by you doing nothing, by me doing nothing. It comes by developing capacities lying dormant inside me, and many capacities. The other thing is we are created, humans as species, like at the pinnacle or summit of creations, is like at the top. But you see, we are different from animals. And what makes us different, one of the things that make us different is that for an animal, a cheetah is the fastest mammal on ground, and it doesn't need to go to the gym to run quick.
Yeah.
But for a fastest man, I don't know the current one, but we all know Usain Bolt.
Yes.
That guy, if you study the work he put in to become the fastest, you would be amazed and shocked, literally. It is not that he was born fastest. It was the work he put in to bring out that capacity, that ability to be the fastest man. So he had to do something about it. So constantly, what we need to understand as human beings, unlike animals, we have to cultivate, we have to harness the potentials lying dormant within us. And when you lack that understanding, which is this chapter really, you will abuse the Creator to think that He created others better off than you. What you need, because you lack an understanding that there are dormant potentials lying inside you that need harnessing. When you lack that understanding, you will die without harnessing them, and you will rob the world of what you could be, you know? So,
just cut you short a bit.
Yeah.
If you look at the spheres, I don't think you called them spheres, you called them dimensions.
Yeah.
I think another thing that you talk about in this chapter, you're introducing the idea of even as you work hard, even as you're trying to make sure that the dormant potential in you is being put to use, you kind of still have to focus. You cannot do all kinds of things at the same time.
Yeah.
So I would like you to tell us about that.
So it is interesting that for many people, truthfully speaking, we have potential, all of us. God has deposited potential in us. You would find people, including ourselves,
Yes.
there is, as you're growing up, there is a thing you are pulled toward, always. You're like, I'm drawn to talking to people. And such a thing would have come from when you are a child. You sort of wanted to gather people and tell them stories. But I have to, if I'm a parent of a person like that, I have to notice and now work around developing that potential so that they will become a better communicator. And different people, all of us, even the people watching us, there is a thing that pulls you while you are even young. It is always pulling you. Or when you're working at that thing, you find that for you it comes easy. But when you don't develop the capacity to improve on yourself, to really function well in that field, you will remain mediocre. One of the things my mentor tells me is, for anything you are into, aim to be the top 10 in that field. And just when you are in that top 10, people know you for that thing. And I believe if I'm say into name anything, or medicine, or I'm a teacher, I have to aim to be, for example, in our country, Rwanda, or in our region, in East Africa, if they speak your name in that thing, will your name be among the 10? Will it come out? If they put a conference on education, for instance, will you be among the keynote speakers? Until you are, there is work to do, even when that is your field. Yeah. So it is an understanding, honestly. Everyone has a thing they are pulled toward. So when you have an understanding that this is potential that needs to be worked on, you set time aside, work on that thing until you become the top of the top in that particular field. I don't know if I make sense.
Yeah, you did. It reminded me of an interview that I once watched. It was an interview, I think, by... they were interviewing late Kobe Bryant, and he was talking about how his age was being focused on basketball.
Yeah.
So he grew up with dreams to become the best basketballer of all time, and that's what he focused on. So he says he wasn't taller than everyone in NBA. He wasn't faster. He didn't have massive hands. He talks about so many things that he didn't have, but his name can never be you know.
MVP.
Yeah, he's going to remain in the history of basketball because he focused.
Yeah. Just to talk about that, there is a book by a gentleman, I forget his name, a popular book. He says that people who have come top in their field, when you notice, must have put in 10,000 hours in that thing. And that is a long time.
Wow.
10,000 hours is almost like 10 years.
In this book, I think there's somewhere that you recommend reading for 30 or an hour every day. And that's where we are going actually, page 68. If you go to page 68, you said, you have no excuse not to read. Resolve to read in your field at least 30 to 60 minutes a day. and think about how you can apply what you have read. Soon you will get better and better at what you do, both consciously and unconsciously, because whatever you give yourself to eventually gives itself back to you in a measure that is pressed down, shaken together, and running over. I loved these words. I loved the perspective you put to this verse. It's so much awesome. But also, last time we talked about writing.
Yeah.
I don't want you to talk about reading.
Yeah.
You can combine it with what you were saying, that you have to invest at least 10,000 hours in a field.
Yeah.
But also touch on why do we need read?
Now, again, I love this conversation. It is tying in with how it began, understanding. So, you see, you may, in any field you may be in, you could be a communicator. Mm-hmm. Right now, the knowledge about communication might be limited. That is at your disposal. Mm-hmm. That until you find that knowledge, you will remain stuck in what you know. Mm-hmm. Right now at the current level. So the beauty of reading is it exposes you to a wider field of understanding or knowledge in that particular field you want to explore. And when you are not reading, what you are saying is that I want to look like where I was born. You see? Everyone was born somewhere.
When you're not reading, you were saying that you want to look like where you were born.
Yes. Like,
interesting.
You would think that where you're born is big, but it is not.
Yeah.
There are new worlds out that you need to expose your brain, your mind to. And so, reading affords you the opportunity to look beyond where you are born, to look beyond the borders of where you grew up from. You can't always have an excuse that this is the only thing I know how. Or else you will remain at that level. Mm-hmm. So reading will take you into new, territory, new frontiers, so to speak. So and it is not a simple thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. When you look at the Bible, Bible is very, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
When you look at how the Bible encourages people to read every day, and you could say in their time there were not so many books, so maybe that's why God tells them to read the Bible every day. Mm. I don't think that God is saying that read every day, just the Bible, but don't read anything else. And this has caused so many places that have received Christianity to always, every place that receives Christianity also received the teaching of writing and reading.
Yeah.
And I see that somehow it is intended from the Bible, it's intended by God, that his people ought to live a lifestyle of reading. And if you can at least find anything else to read, keep reading just the Bible. If you can read the Bible and something else, but still continue to read at least every day.
There is something about reading beyond even opening your mind to new territory and frontier, is that your mind is, there are things in your brain that fire, to create new thought patterns, So when we read, we are helping ourselves to even just not aging quicker. The people who read through their late years, when you sit with them, you find that they are younger in a way. So it is even helpful for the brain. But more, you cannot give, writing is giving. If you think about it, you cannot give from an empty place.
That's right.
So when I'm reading, I'm fetching to the end that I can give in writing. So
in the book you say that Jesus expected the Pharisees to have read. So he asked them, have you not read?
Yes.
And I'm like, imagine God asking me and you,
Yes.
do you read? Have you read?
Yeah. Have you not read? I find it fascinating that that question in the New Testament, if I'm not mistaken, is repeated 5 times by Jesus.
Wow.
Have you not read? It is interesting as well that Jesus at home, he had read the law and he had it in his mind at home that he, for 3 days, he was reasoning with the teachers of the law, and they were like, my goodness, where does this young man get all this? In other words, that guy was well read. Now, going to his ministry time at 30, that guy's mind, it is also interesting that never, I heard it from my mentor, Apostle Moses, he says, never at any one time did they ask Jesus a thing and they say they don't know, or come back later.
That, yeah.
You get?
Yeah.
And for everything you don't know, it is a report card. There is something you haven't exposed your mind to that you need to by reading.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Now, let's go to another chapter that is very important, chapter 6. You go to page, you wanted to add something first?
Yeah, maybe if we are not bad on time, just
okay.
As an encouragement to read for our viewers. Again, I write it in this book. If you're not continually learning and upgrading your skills, somewhere someone is. And when you meet them, you are the loser.
That's right.
Not them. And so we have to constantly, because you are not a cheetah, you are not an animal, that you will be the fastest.
Just by being
Yeah,
who you are.
no. For human beings, there has to be a development, which is intentional happening, and yeah. I thought I would add that.
Wow. So, there's an interesting story I want you to share with us. That's page 75. I think last time we touched it a bit, but I would like our viewers to get the whole story.
Wow.
It's in chapter 5, where you talk about your brother John and this other man that was in your neighborhood. Is it chapter 5? No, chapter 6 actually, that you called imitation. So, but of course, as you share the story, I also want you to comment on these words that are on page 75, where you said, after sharing the story, you say, the point of my sharing this story is to show how crucial imitation is and what we can do with it if we understand its value. I believe that until we understand its value, moving beyond words will remain as something we can hardly attain. I've had so many other principles. The imitation sounds kind of new.
Yeah.
But when you told the story of your brother in this other neighborhood, this man that was in your neighborhood, and what happens to your brother just by imitating that man, made so much sense to me. And I think it's one of the reasons why they always tell us to have a role model. I understood that having a role model, you're not even talking to this role model. You're not, he's not like a mentor that you are having a conversation with every day.
Yeah.
But you have a role model, someone that you can actually imitate. Of course, we also imitate our mentors and other people that are around us. Sometimes we do it consciously, or sometimes we do it unconsciously. But yeah, because I love stories, I would like to first listen to the story, but we can also comment on the principle of imitation.
So, well, interestingly, at the time I wrote this book, I hadn't grasped what I was writing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So by writing it, you learned more.
I learned, but even now, I even have a better grasp of it.
Wow.
So, again, because we are believers or people of the book, the Bible, there is where Jesus tells his disciples, follow me, and I will make you become it is interesting. You follow, then you are made to become into. So my understanding of that is until I follow someone, my chances of becoming into someone are minimal, are limited. So imitation for me is really like following an individual. And when you have traveled from our part of the world to the Western world, for example, you will find something interesting in these cities. I've traveled a bit to the Western world, and what you find is that most cities, for example, in Europe, they are similar. Like when you see London, Berlin, Milan, those capitals in Europe, you will find a striking similarity in most of them in the way they are building. And you wonder why. But really what happened was imitation, was following, was copying. Another way of imitation is really copying. Another way is, so when a nation copies another, they get to a place where they look like the other nation. So for me to develop, for our country to develop into a developed world, actually I thank God for our leaders. They look like they are imitating the Western world.
We actually, I think many people think we are imitating Singapore.
Exactly. And what the striking thing you notice from what people are saying is that Rwanda is developing quick.
Very rapidly.
Rapidly. Why? They have
an image of what they are imitating,
and they are doing that. And what is happening? They are saying we are becoming developed. So when you have an individual, you are imitating or copying or following, you are soon going to be like them.
Yeah.
Yeah? The other way to look at it or to put it is that imagine you and I, you are, say,
you could use the example of John. If you don't mind telling the story.
The example of John. Actually, you asked me to even share his story. John looked at this guy. This guy I write in the book was a guy who was uneducated, yet with a big mind.
By the way, if I may cut you short, you continue from the story. One of the things I love when I'm reading books, one of the qualities that I look for is a writer's ability to tell the story.
Wow.
So I loved how you wrote the story because it took me in your neighborhood.
Wow.
And I had these pictures in my mind of this guy who was very hardworking, who was doing all these kinds of things. Then your brother imitating him. So I think I should actually commend you for the writing skills. You wrote this story in such an amazing way. So,
so anyway, the story again for our viewers, I hope you get that book, is a man in my neighborhood where we were growing up. He had an amazing capability and capacity, yet he was uneducated. This is a guy, at that time, he created a TV, invented a TV antenna that he created many TV antennas before they were in that neighborhood. We are talking in the mid-90s. And this antenna would get signals for the TV and pictures are clean.
Wow.
This guy had a mind on electricity and we would wonder where he got this. Everything he touched, that guy, it looked like it was prospering. And so because we're in his ecosystem, in his area, my older brother is inspired and he begins doing things like he did. In other words, he followed. And so I remember growing up, my brother would do toy cars that were the envy of the entire neighborhood. but he got this spark from watching this guy. But anyway, all to say that anytime you want to go somewhere, it is interesting there are people who have already gone there. And for you to think that you are going to create your own road to there is a waste of time.
That's right.
So we are all going to town. The president has done as well. He has built the road to town. We all want to go to town. Why in the freaking world do you have to, because you want to go down, I'm going to create my own road, when a road is already there? So following is capturing the understanding that someone else has built the road. And because they have, let me walk it.
Yeah.
Instead of me
Creating
building
my
my
own,
own. Imagine creating a road from here to town. How many years will it take you?
How much money you're going to spend and time
you,
and
you
everything.
even don't have.
Yeah. Yet you have shoulders of giants that you could stand on.
Exactly. So imitation or following is really walking in the path others have already
Created,
made,
yeah.
created. And it is simpler, easier, reduces your time, reduces your resources. You don't have to spend what they spend. So that is what imitation is.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think this takes us to the next chapter where you talk about mentorship.
Yeah.
Chapter 7, page 86. Page 86, you said something. It was interesting because I think, let me combine these two questions.
Wow.
Yeah, let me combine these two questions because if you look at, so what I wanted here is on page 86. You see those words you wrote in italic. You say, those around me go beyond me. And chapter 12, page 158, where you talk about one of your mentor, Tim Clutter. I will read on page 158. Page 158, you said, one of the most selfless leaders I have ever crossed paths with, and I have been privileged to call mentor, Mr. Tim Clutter. A few years back told me, in his experience working with and mentoring many young men and women, he found that on the African continent, it took an average of 30 years for a person to find out what he termed as their true north, which according to him is way more than it does for many in the West. Yeah, I'm combining these questions because when you talk about mentorship, you're talking about the principle of going beyond those who came before you, just like we were saying in the following. And you kind of, that statement that I just read is like a purpose of a mentor.
Yeah.
Make sure that those who are around you go beyond you.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've seen so many people that have done an excellent job at that as Tim Clutter.
Yeah.
I think our meeting, he might not know, but he made it possible. And this statement that you write in this book, I have heard him say it also back in the time. I don't remember if I was still at CLA or if it was in one of the meetings that we have with him as alumni. But two things I wanted to touch in this thing, in this question. One, who is Tim Clutter to you?
Wow.
I know he hates praises, he doesn't like that much, but to who honor is due, every time you have a chance, we should be able to let the world know there's someone out there that has done actually amazing things. But also, I want you to talk about mentorship, talking to us who is Tim Clutter, but also you tell us something about mentorship.
Wow. Well, thank you for bringing this up, and I want to thank, we call him Uncle Tim, who in our spaces where we know each other. This is an incredible man. I don't know many people, I've not met many people who have the character and charisma of a leader like Uncle Tim. I met him in 2015. No, not 2015, in 2005. Yeah, when I was a young guy. But from that time I met him until today, I don't know many consistent people like him. That is one. He's a great example for especially young people like myself and you. He is a good father. One of the things I'm diving there a bit is one of the things that young men need in our generation is to have men who model what great manship or fatherhood is like. And for me and you, I believe this man has modeled fatherhood so excellently. He has modeled what manhood should look like. You see sacrifice in his stature. You see love, unconditional. Many have found purpose just interacting with him. I'm one of those, really. I work in a thing he founded many years ago. I've been incredibly blessed by this gentleman and continually.
One of the amazing things I know about him. So for me, I met him in 2011 when I joined Cornerstone Leadership Academy Rwanda. And towards the end, I think when we were in our final year, someone asked him, "We've done so much for us. It's been amazing. We've not only, because it was a scholarship, so we had studied for free, which is not something very common. But also, it wasn't just the scholarship, because a lot of people who had enough money to pay for their kids to even better schools in terms of infrastructure and everything had chosen to bring their children to our school. Yeah. So I don't remember if there's a student that asked him or if it's a parent that asked him, but I remember someone asked him, what could we do to pay back what you've done to us? And he said something that struck me. He said, if you really want to pay me back, and I really want you to pay me back, go and be all that you ought to be. Go and use what I have taught you. Because, you know, there are a lot of principles that he always taught us. I think that time particularly he had talked about the things, I think there's like 3 things that he wants all Cornerstone people to be known for. Yeah. And he said, the points I mentioned tonight, just go and be that. I'll feel fully paid back for what I've done. So as we were saying, I think he's one of the fewest people that are selfless, that are servant leaders indeed. Yeah. You hear so many stories about him from people that have lived with him, that have known him in different aspects. And just like you were saying, I don't think that there is so many leaders that are like him. Yeah. There are only just a few that inspire people to find purposes for their lives and to be all they were born to be. Yeah.
Really, really, really. I personally, the first time I conceived the idea of writing was while I was at school, in high school at Cornerstone. In fact, back in that day I would write what you call news from the academy, and that's how my gift went growing. And I've had many opportunities, even small, that look small, but they were defining for me when I was with him one-on-one, where he spoke into me, where he called every young man. There is a hunger, a yearning inside every young man and woman, and there is that inner voice crying out, see me, call me, talk to me, be around me. And this gentleman, Uncle Tim,
wow, that's powerful. What you just said, man.
Yes.
Super powerful.
Has been that for many of us. And in those moments, he has called out the old in us. And when a man like myself stands and I'm speaking right into a camera, it has, what you don't know, it has taken many things behind the scene, many people pulling out the gold in me to have the confidence to sit around a table like this one. So he's one of those for me. Yeah.
And so let's go back to mentorship. How does mentorship help us to go beyond walls?
Yeah. Again, that point we had a bit talked about is, for me to go further, I honestly need someone to take me on the road. That's why you need to read books. The purpose of reading is you are seeing things from other people that will take you, like catapult you into your destiny. But really, for me, my mentors, I don't know where I would be if I didn't have people I looked at, I listened from. I have an incredible pastor, and she's a lady, Pastor Joy. You would spend a minute, 10, 20 minutes, and she would speak things, and your mind will, go in that direction that you should be going. And sometimes I'm like, if I didn't have people like this in my life, probably I would be wasting away. So what mentorship really is, you collecting wisdom cheaply.
At almost no price.
Yeah, at almost no price. An example, this is what I have thought about mentorship, and I hope it makes sense to the person viewing. In our part of the world, we lack people, or we grow up around parents who live early, and they leave us nothing in terms of inheritance. So when I can have mentors around me, I can truly gain inheritance.
Yeah.
And for me, inheritance, really, when you think about it, is really a thing you get that buys you time.
That's right.
Let me give an example. My mom, not very educated, she is in her 60s. But this woman of God, my mother, in her 60 years, there are things she knows about homemaking, about family, that if I take her for granted because I have a degree and she doesn't, I miss out on that experience. Yet, if I look at her as one who carries an understanding of this particular thing, family, homemaking, and I take her out, I buy her a nice meal, or I buy her a good dress, and sit with her with 5 questions on that subject, you would be shocked, I would be shocked that in a moment she will deliver a mastermind or a course in 2 hours that is worth 50 years of her life.
Yeah.
So when I get that thing, in a moment she has delivered in 2 hours, that she has learned, that has taken her a lifetime to learn, I am receiving an inheritance.
That's right.
I have bought time. I don't have to take the same years she took to learn that thing.
That's right.
That is the beauty of mentorship, is that you sit with someone, by experience they have gone through things, you just come with a question, they deliver, and in just a moment you walk away with a thing that has taken people lifetimes. So when you sit with Uncle Tim, for example, there are many things that man has learned. And easily, over a cup of tea, he will solve a problem that would have taken you
Millions of years.
20, 30, 40 years to learn. So when we say mentorship is really inheritance or wisdom that comes to us for cheap, It is not a mistake. So our world especially, because we are disadvantaged, we never get inheritance, we need to value mentorship.
Yeah.
That is how we would move quicker in life.
As you were speaking, I remembered something that had always intrigued me. The book of Romans, Apostle Paul writes and says, what do Jews have that is better than the rest of everybody else? And he says they have the promises of God. Other versions will say the scriptures. And you will ask yourself, but many other people have scriptures, and I mean, at least what they call scriptures and all that. But you go in every culture, and even if what they have is not what you and I may call scriptures, for example, but you know, in Kinyarwanda, the word for scriptures is what has been written.
Yes.
And this man is saying Jews have an advantage because they have things that have been written down for them to interact with for their future.
Yeah.
And when you look at their scriptures, it's experiences of people that have been written down.
Yeah.
I wonder why they wouldn't have just, wrote, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, but they put their stories of, they put you lots, they give you a lot of stories of experiences of people. And I think when you say a real inheritance is when you learn wisdom from someone else's experience.
Yeah.
You don't have to experience it yourself.
Yeah.
Now, since you've touched about family, one of the things I told you that I was amazed with when I read your book was how passionate you are about so many things, including families, including your patriotism, your love for Rwanda, but also for Africa. And it looks like chapter 9 is about families. I mean, you take a big portion writing about families. And I wanted to ask you a question from page 98. And I would like you to speak to us who are about to be parents in some years to come, but also to current parents. So page 98, you said, it is in a functioning families that people are empowered to discover their identities and pursue God-given destinies. No one would rather say it's not in families, it's in churches. But you insist that it is in functioning families that people are empowered to discover their identities and pursue God-given destinies. In fact, when empowerment is not happening, a family is a dysfunctional state, and its members are not sons being fathered, but slaves merely given an address to stay. Wow. This is powerful, bro. So, speak to that, please.
Man, these are like things you want a whole hour
Yeah, I know.
talk about. But also, I want to say this, that if you are in a dysfunctional family, it is not the end for you. God is always setting you up to put you in a family.
That's right.
There is a scripture in Isaiah 60, I think 8. No, the Bible says, God sets the lonely in families.
Yeah.
Like, He's always orchestrating ways to put you in a family, even when you are in a dysfunctional family, even when you are without a family. God is always finding means to the end that you are in a family. And you see, what you call in our local dialect, Maivovo, what is that when you think about it? It's a person who is out of family.
That's right.
So, and God knows that. That is why.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What you just said is too powerful.
Yes. And it is true.
Yeah.
So every time I see a kid misbehaving, I want to know, are they in family? And I look at them from that heart, is, man, this guy is like this because he's out of family. It is in family that charity begins. You know that expression, charity begins at home. So, and it is interesting when you are in a dysfunctional family, you find a man who grew up in a dysfunctional family behaving like a demon because they didn't have charity. passed on to them. But again, the good news is God is always orchestrating ways to bring you in family.
Lawrence have this other saying that is very powerful. They say, you help me translate it. They say, "Uburere buruta ubuvuke." It's like saying the upbringing, that being trained as a child is much more important than having been born, than birth. It's like saying, you've been born and that's so great, but you want to know something that is even greater.
Being
The way you are.
Being raised. And it is interesting, there are adults today who are living like they never received a raise, a nurturing. And when you see an angry man, a misbehaved man, woman, you are seeing one who wasn't raised well and nurtured well. And what they need is they are in need of raising. I'm grateful I'm part of a family outside my natural family that actually are raising me. Like where I go to church, they tell you how to save, how to treat others. Like these are things that benefit me, but they don't take it for granted that I know. You would be shocked about many things we don't know, yet we are adults.
Yeah, that's right.
Some of us, we even think we went to school, we should know. But maybe your behavior is telling about how you're raised, and you need to be raised by someone else. So, I heard earlier at church today that many men or many marriages may not survive if people didn't go in a church family.
That's right.
So some marriages are intact because they are in a family. Yeah. So family is really important.
I know, time is not on our side. I still had a lot to ask you.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just read the quotes and we won't have to comment about it, and I'll ask you the last question. You go to page 117. Page 117, I wanted to ask you, there's something you said here, and you said, nothing in this world, and I repeat nothing, is as highly profitable as having God with us. And I think one of the things that you are emphasizing in this passage, in this chapter, you're talking about the presence of God and how it's where almost everything is born, especially greatness. Greatness is born in the presence of God. So I wanted to touch that, but I also wanted you to touch page 145, which was an amazing perspective, if you ask me. Page 145, you said, God has endowed us with gifts that it can have global impact. And the reason they have global impact is not because we are special, but because the gift giver gives with a global perspective in mind. That struck me. There's a lot that, so I wanted also you to talk about the north, the true north, as Tim Kruta puts it, because I believe that in that chapter that's what you're exploring. But because of the interest of time, I would just like to ask you one question, and I hope that our viewers will buy the book for them to find out what you meant in those specific chapters that we didn't get a chance to cover. The last chapter, you called it the case for beyond walls. I hope I quoted it right. So the case for beyond walls. What did you mean? And what's your departing message to our viewers?
Wow. Man, there are many ideas flowing
I know.
with those questions. But first of all, I want to thank you for exposing this book to many viewers, your viewers, Rantan, non-Rantan, many. Thank you again. So, on those statements you read, one is really, when you think about it, we are created in the image of God. The very first thing in the Bible that God is known of was, and God created.
So he's the creator before everything else.
Yes.
In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. That's how the Bible starts.
That is the opening. And when you think about it, if you are in His image,
wow,
you have to be creating something. You have to be known like
Man,
that.
you're crazy.
So, because you are, and until you notice God, it is why maybe we are delaying to be created, to enter into that part of who we are. We are innately, we are creators, creative. And so I want to encourage you that know your maker and know who you are, because you are created in that image. I'm drawing you to know him, because in knowing him, there is a lot of you will find out. I'll leave it at that. Then the other, what did you say?
It was, there's nothing,
Right.
and I repeat, there is nothing in this world that is as great, that we have, that is as great as having God with us.
Yeah, like honestly, when you have the richest man, and I'm bringing it to how we can understand it. Imagine Elon Musk, the richest man, was with you, was your right hand man. How would life look like?
You're crazy. Ask Trump.
Exactly.
He won election almost because of
This one man.
Yeah.
Now, what if I told you that God is much better than that guy? God with you. It is nothing uncompared. If that left my head, even me speaking to you, and it was a conviction and entered my heart, I would be unstoppable. I would. So God with you is so much better than anything you can imagine. He is the majority. When you are with him, you are the majority. Nothing can put you down. So that is that God with you. What was the other
last
thing?
one was the last chapter. You called it the case for beyond walls.
Yes, the case for beyond walls. So in the book Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Benjamin Lapin, he says that each person begins in life with a head start in some area and the hand up in another. So all of us, we are in that mix. There is a thing, you have a head start. You are better in that thing than anyone else. But also there is an area where you lack, you are hand up. That is a given. Everyone will tell you, me, I can't be on a camera because of this and this and this. Now, there are people who never see their head start, and they are always on their hand up. They have failed to go to advance because of a hand up they have. Like, me, I'm a woman, for example. Yet, there are people who have moved the borders of humanity, the boundaries, who were women.
Yeah.
That you need to encounter, and just encountering their story or them will nullify your excuses. It will put them down. So that's the thing is, the expert beyond more I talk about individuals who have pushed the boundaries for humanity, including our president. And when you see them, you are invited to be more. Their life is a testimony that draws you in to stop living like you are living currently, but also for you to start pushing the boundaries so that you can go beyond walls. And these people are all over us. They are always around us.
Man, I want to thank you so much for today. Your book is powerful, and I thank you for having given us 2 hours of your life, and probably actually more, to sharing with us the wisdom in this book, but also for having given us this book. I'm very, very glad, and I mean it, to have known you and to have encountered your book. God bless you.
Bless you.
And to our viewers, this is CNM Podcast, organized by Christ for the Nations Ministries. I'm Vitali Movunyi. It was a joy for us to have you, and see you next Sunday. God bless you.